Welcome back, grade 12s. We are still busy with our Provincial Winter School Business Studies Paper 1 sessions. We are now on question 5. It is a business environments question, which is our main topic, and we are dealing with legislation, which is our subtopic. Let's get started with the questions. If we look at our section C, question 5 question, we know that it says the compensation. Let me just use my pointer there quickly. Get that ready. The Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Amendment Act, COIDA, 1997, recognizes that some occupations are dangerous and expose workers to health risks. Businesses need to be knowledgeable of actions that could be regarded as non-compliant. They must also comply with COIDA to avoid unnecessary penalties for non-compliance with this act. Now, learners, what is important is the fact that I need to highlight that this block with the information is no longer referred to as a scenario in section C. We now talk about it as a preamble. That means that it's a statement and it's getting you ready to answer your essay. Please also make sure that you read through all 4 bullets underneath the essay so that you can determine if you want to answer question 5 or question 6. Please also remember to highlight your verbs and understand how much or how little you need to write, and also how we mark these verbs as teachers and examiners. So let's get started with the actual answering of the essay. I am now highlighting some information there in the block, and you will see that in the preamble block, there is a bullet that is linked to the first sentence in the preamble. So all this is showing you, learners, is that the bullets are actually linked to the preamble, and this is why you cannot rewrite the information from the preamble in your essay. If we look at the next sentence, businesses need to be knowledgeable of actions that could be regarded as non-compliant. It is linked with the second bullet. If we look at our third sentence, they must also comply with COIDA, which is linked to your fourth bullet. And then also the last part of the sentence is to avoid unnecessary penalties for non-compliance with the Act. And this is then linked to the third bullet. So learners, as you can see, this is why we do not rewrite the information from the preamble, because all you're actually doing is rewriting your bullets of your essay. Now, if we look at the introduction could be, for example, COIDA was introduced to protect the health and safety of employees in the workplace. That is factual, so you would get 1 mark for that sentence. COIDA provides guidelines for the compensation of employees who are disabled because of injuries sustained or diseases contracted at work. That is also factual, so you would get 1 more mark for that. You could also say it also provides for compensation if a worker dies due to a work-related injury or disease. That is also factual. Another mark would be indicated there. And injuries and diseases for which claims can be made are specified in the Act. So learners, what is important for you to understand here with the introduction is that the word introduction, first of all, needs to be there. In order for you to obtain a layout mark for the word introduction being there, you need to have information. And when I say information, I mean content underneath the words introduction. And also you need 1-2 sentences, and each sentence will be worth 1 mark, and you can obtain a maximum of 2 marks for your introduction. Some notes. Please do not rewrite the preamble. I have already mentioned this, but I must stress it again. This will result in you receiving no marks over here for your introduction if you just rewrite the preamble that was already given to you. Please also avoid general introductions. You have to look at the preamble and the bullets and base your introduction on the content that will be expanded on in your essay. Remember, only content or facts will be marked. Please note, I have now indicated the L that would be in your left-hand margin of your paper, and you would receive an L if your examiner sees the word introduction at the start of your essay, as well as some information written underneath it. Please make sure that there is a space then between your introduction and your content and your first subheading in your essay. Let's look at our first subheading. If you look at your booklet, the first bullet says outline the purpose of COIDA. And remember that outline is awarded no split marks. In other words, the marks appear at the end of the content. You could say the following, and there's a lot on the screen, but remember that there is a maximum of 12 marks up for grabs here. And so we have more than 6 bullets. So it could provide comprehensive protection to employees who get injured or contract diseases while performing their duties. COIDA or COIDA applies to all casual or full-time workers who become ill, injured, disabled, or die due to a workplace accident or disease. It excludes workers who are guilty of willful misconduct, workers working outside of South Africa for at least 12 months, or members of the SA Defence Force or the police services. They actually have their own type of comprehensive cover for injuries in the workplace. So it also provides for the establishment of a compensation board whose function is to advise the Minister of Labour on the application or provisions of COIDA. Medical expenses or other types of compensation are paid to employees and or their families depending on the type or severity of the injuries. Employers must pay a monthly amount to the compensation fund depending on the number of employees or the level of risk they are exposed to. Remember, certain workplaces are more dangerous than others. And the last possible bullet you could use is provides compensation for employees or families for injuries or death occurred while carrying out their duties. This bullet over here is generally the most common response from learners. Now remember, learners, there are 7 bullets over here on the screen, but we would need 6 bullets to be able to award you a maximum of 12 marks over there. And remember also that outline is marked with no split marks, so the marks are awarded at the end of the sentence. These outline type of questions is simply just memorizing of facts, so it would be good to make sure that you can remember something like this. The purpose of all the acts would be important because it would generally be asked at the beginning of an essay type question. Let's look at our second bullet. Apologies there for the animations again. Explain split marks. So that verb there, if we look at our question, sorry about that. Explain the actions that could be regarded as non-compliant for COIDA or COIDA. So again here, you'll see there's a maximum allocation of 10 marks that is given, and we have 6 bullets. 6 bullets would equal 12 marks. But because the marks are split marks, you would have to give us a fact and an explanation of the fact afterwards for the second mark. So what are the actions that could be regarded as non-compliant for COIDA? Employers who bribe or prevent their employees from reporting the accident or injury. So you would ask yourself this what, why, when, where, who question after you give the fact. Employers who bribe or prevent what? Their employees from reporting the accident or injury. That would be considered non-compliant. Providing false information about what? About previous serious accidents or occupational diseases would also be considered non-compliant. Employers who do not contribute what? Or to who, rather, to the compensation fund, also considered non-compliant. Employers who do not allow claims for what? For injuries, also discriminates against injured employees. And the last two, employers that take too long with what? To process claims, and also compensation that is set off against any debt of the person entitled to the compensation. So apologies for the ticks not being there. It should be over there after the word debt, and the last check mark should be at the word compensation. So there's the first bullet dealt with for your essay. And if we look at the second question, apologies for that, not the second question, the third bullet, we want to now discuss the penalties for or of non-compliance for this act on businesses. Now, discuss here is marked with split marks, so that is also important for us to know as a learner so that we know how much to write. And your possible answers here is that the penalties for now not complying with COIDA is the following. Businesses can be fined, and that's 1 mark, for refusing to lodge the claim. So that is where the second mark appears. So fines are generally a common response for non-compliance with all of the acts. So please try and remember that, because that is quite a common answer for non-compliance with all of the acts. Businesses can also be forced to make large payments, and this will happen if it did not take the necessary precautions according to the act. So again, they're just a justification of the fact. They may be forced to pay any recovery costs, and this will be required by who? Which will be required by the compensation fund. Employees may take businesses to court for what? For not registering them with the compensation fund. And I read an interesting article which might help you with your originality marks in your essays. Domestic workers should actually be registered with the compensation fund if they are earning over, I think there's a general amount, but we can Google it, just over 4,000 Rand for the month. They should be registered with the compensation fund, as their hourly wage last year was just over 19 Rand. So I think that has increased, but domestic workers now in South Africa should actually be registered if they are working over a certain amount of hours, should be registered with the compensation fund so that they can also claim from the fund. If businesses are found guilty of any misconduct, they will have to pay large penalties or face imprisonment. Again, learners, this last bullet is a very, very common answer for non-compliance with all of the acts from your core notes. Now, just a reminder here that the word penalty means a punishment and is imposed for breaking a law, a rule, or a contract. Now, obviously, remember the word act means law, so there would be some legalities for all businesses to comply with or legal actions that they need to take. Therefore, businesses can close down is not a penalty and not a correct answer. So please remember that this is also, I think, for some learners, a common response to say that the business will close down, but that is not an answer. So these are the answers that you need to give us here. And remember that, as I mentioned before, being fined is a very common answer for all of the acts, and also then the fact that they have to pay large penalties or possibly face imprisonment for not paying or not complying with the act. There's a maximum of 8 marks allocated for this bullet. This will be in the marking guideline when your examiners or your teachers are marking, but you can see there are 5 bullets on the screen and there is a possible 10 marks available for this bullet. Now, if we look at the last bullet, it said recommendations on ways to comply with COIDA. Now, you know, with all of your acts, there are always ways, or in all of the core notes and with all of the acts, there are ways to comply with all of the acts. The verb recommend or recommendations, in this case, it says recommendations, but the verb is actually recommend. It's also not split marks. I apologize there. It should be no split marks. And that means that the marks are awarded at the end of the content that you provide, or every response, every bullet. So our possible answers here for the recommendations, which is again no split marks, apologies for that. Businesses should provide a healthy or safe working environment. There are your marks at the end. Ensure that the equipment or machinery is in good working condition. Register with the Compensation Commissioner and provide the particulars of the business. Report any incidents causing death or injury or illness of employees. Learners, you could give only one of these answers. For example, you could say report incidents causing death of employees, or report incidents causing injury of employees, and you would still get your 2 marks. Apologies again also there for that 2 marks missing there. And levies must be paid to the compensation fund. So this is how we comply. Also, another way to comply, nice easy one for you to remember because it's nice and short. Keep records of employees' income for 4 years. So businesses must do this to comply with COIDA. And the last possible answer there is to allow regular assessment of the workplace by inspectors in order to determine the level of risk their employees are exposed to. You will see there's a maximum allocation here of 10 marks, and there are 7 bullets on the screen, so 5 bullets would have been sufficient over there. This is a nice easy one just to remember, and you get your marks awarded at the end of the fact. Now, again, I need to just highlight that I have now put a on the screen on the left hand side, which would appear in your left hand margin of your paper. So that A is an analysis mark. Remember, we use the letters FLASO or the acronym FLASO to mark your paper. And this A is an analysis mark. Now, the reason why it's indicated after the 4th bullet is because in this case, all 4 bullets have been addressed. So you have analyzed your essay question, you have looked at your bullets, and you have addressed all of the bullets. So you get 1 freebie mark there because this letter A represents a mark. Then the examiner or the marker or the teacher, he will carry on checking the check marks or the tick marks, and they will start adding them up. And the minute they get to 16 or more facts, they will then indicate a second A in the left hand margin underneath the first A. So that second A there is for 16 to 32 facts or content marks there. So please, sometimes learners also do get to a point where they actually exceed the 32, but the minute the learner gets to 16, that is when the second A is indicated, and that will be in the left hand margin. The second A also represents a mark. Right, Then if we look at our last part of our essay question, let's have a look at our conclusion. So learners, remember that you cannot repeat any facts here for your conclusion, and you will see then the following possible answers for a either or quite a long question. Good progress has been made as businesses are now more socially responsible in improving safety measures or working or being responsible for workers and their dependents. You'll see that there are 2 marks indicated for the end of the first sentence. Workers in some industries are being compensated for contracting diseases such as tuberculosis or silicosis. That's another possible 2 marks. And if death occurs, families may benefit as the deceased worker may be substituted by another family member in the same industry. These are all valid points. And remember that there is a L indicated in the left-hand margin next to the word conclusion. This is the second time you will see an L indicated in your essay, and that is the second layout mark. That is given for seeing the word conclusion and then also for having content underneath the word conclusion. So learners, please remember that you must have a response under conclusion in order to obtain your layout mark. Now, if we look at a few general notes, remember that one sentence here for your conclusion is worth 2 or valid for 2 marks. This content that is mentioned here is going to wrap up your essay, and that is why you get awarded with 2 marks. Please do not repeat your facts here for 2 additional marks in terms of your facts, your 32 facts, and don't forget to try and use recent news or trends to incorporate into your subheading or subheadings on paragraphs, and that will then get you your originality marks. And that's it for question 5. In the next session, we will move to question 6.